Good afternoon, Hextelda. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing all right today. It's Saturday, January 26th. Time's cooking by.
Yes, it has been. That's kind of been the norm lately, is how fast it's going.
Big time.
Yeah, how many things keep happening and popping up and coming into our awareness.
Oh my gosh, so fast. Every time we go to record something, it's like there's literally so much information coming forward. We almost cannot record because things keep coming up and revealing themselves.
Yeah. And there's a lot of background to a lot of these things that come up too. So
Right.
having to explain them ahead of time as to why they're relevant and
right.
is
It's not always easy, and so then it's hard to find a place to start and to remember we just got to start, man, because otherwise we can't even talk about some of these things if we don't get people filled in. So with that said, we're going to jump right into it. I'm going to clear up a couple of things that I'm not sure that I mentioned. I might be repeating myself, just to throw it out there. A couple of weeks ago, before we did the first imaging, of your lead in your leg, your graphite, in your leg, is when I kind of really, really looked at my leg, and I think I kind of found my piece there too. We haven't imaged mine. We have imaged yours. We're going to be getting those images up on the site soon. And let's see. What else?
Have you been getting a lot of emails and messages from people kind of telling you their story and stuff?
Nothing from anybody that I don't already know.
Okay.
Not that I already knew the stories that are being shared, but yeah, there's been some interesting things on Facebook come up, and people, either they have the memory, or they, it triggers them to tell me about another memory for whatever reason. So there's been a couple of interesting things that have come forward because of that. I do wish more people would share it and comment and just give me a yes or no, man, on the poll of whether you have this memory or not. But
and where is the poll located?
It's on the website, the Facebook page for Divine Matrix SOULutions, spelled SOULutions, on Facebook. That's where a lot of these things, as far as social media, are going to be shared. The website is finally hosting a page called Compendium, where we have all the pictures and the screenshots of the comments online about the pencil stabbing stuff, as well as the butt crack scar stuff.
Yes.
Which I kind of need to, I can't wait to get to. We have to get to it in this episode. That's all there is to it. Okay. I'm going to have to talk really fast. So if you need to slow the video down on YouTube, if you're on a cell phone or on a tablet, you can do that, I believe. If you're watching it through your TV app, it hasn't quite been an option for me yet. But anyways, okay, so please go to the website. Please send me emails. Please send us pictures. Yes. Please send us your stories, because where this is all really going and what literally just happened just before we started recording this is, this is all of us. I'm sorry. This isn't just me. And if you don't have the butt crack scar, and if you don't have the pencil stabbing thing, that's okay. I guarantee I just haven't found your thing yet.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I haven't found your fucking thing yet, man. So send us your stories, because here's the thing. We're all this massive experiment to a large degree. I'm sorry to throw it out there like that, and I'll wrap it all up a little bit more in this episode. Right.
But yes,
we'll wrap it all up and tie it all in. Okay, so I have to go back just to kind of wrap something in there in timing wise as compared to the last episode and what we've been talking about and stuff. I have to go to a memory that I think I did touch on a little bit in the first episode or two. Is a situation when I was about 3 years old where I remember jumping out of the back of my uncle's truck when I was, as I said, about 3 years old. I remember that my lip literally got stuck on the hinge of the tailgate. And it ripped my lip open. My lip stayed connected. In my memory, mm-hmm. I have always seen it vividly that my lip stayed connected to the tailgate hinge and I just kept falling. Now, of course, I was little, so it seemed really far, and it was far for a little kid, but, you know, it felt over dramatized in my mind. But anyways, my mom took me to the hospital because I was bleeding. It hurt. I don't remember going to the hospital. Interesting. I suppose I'm thinking about it now. I just remember being at the hospital, having them put this blue drape over my face with a hole in it so that they could suture my lip, the inside of my lip, mind you, not the outside of my fucking lip, but the inside of my bottom lip. They sutured the inside of my bottom lip, and when we were done, they gave me a fucking Tootsie Pop. What stood out about that is it had an Indian shooting a star on it. And I just remember always being told when I was a kid, that means you get another one for free. And it literally has worked, you know, always worked during my childhood. It is just a thing. But anyways, I was pissed because I couldn't eat it. I'm like, well, you know, what kind of an asshole sutures up the inside of a child's lip and then hands her a fucking Tootsie Pop piece of candy that she can't eat? You know, and so I just always was like, well, that's rude. And I've, you know, shared this story with people over my life, and I've always thought to myself every single time I've told this story, well, that sounds like bullshit. Like, how realistic is that? How realistic is it that somebody's lip could get caught on the tailgate of a
right? Because
truck?
it's logically.
I would maybe if I
sense.
Maybe if I was looking down and fell face first into it. Okay. I suppose I never really thought about that. It is possible. So let's.
Yeah.
Is it possible? I don't know. Just in my mind, I have to say that right now because I have to force myself to try and figure out a way that that's possible. Because I've said it. So moving on from there, the scar on the inside of my lip is still there, and they are very interesting. We'll be taking pictures and putting those up really, really soon. There are two, one next to each other. One sort of looks like maybe like an antenna or you know, an odd shaped stick figure or something like that. Yeah. Like a line with two lines crossing it. The other one next to it literally looks like an ankh with a heart at the top of it instead of just an ankh. And it has these little lines out to the side of it as if to say it's bright looking.
Like it's radiating.
Yeah, or something like that. Exactly. So this lip scar hasn't really, I don't know. Again, the story always seemed like bullshit, and I'm like, why would I say that if it wasn't true? And I remember that happening. My uncle who lives here, he still has the truck that it happened in, and I remember asking him specifically about it over a year ago, probably almost 2 years ago now, about, hey, Uncle John, wow, because I went to see him, you know, is that the same truck that I fell out of when I was a kid that I got my lip caught on? And I remember him saying yes. And I was like, damn, isn't that crazy? And we kind of talked about it for a minute. And then when we asked him, you know, a year later, he didn't have the memory.
Yeah.
He didn't know what I was talking about.
Right. And that's kind of what made these memories a little bit
start
more
standing
important.
out. Yeah. Like, well, that's weird. Why wouldn't, this guy remembers stories. He's a storyteller. He's had an interesting life, and he's been an integral part of my life growing up. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that stood out about Aaron McCollum, I'll just say it, because he's one of the people that I met like back in 2009, 2010. It's probably 2010 because I think that's when his first interview came out with Project Camelot and Carrie Cassidy. And that's when I searched him up. And then, we kind of did some, I helped him on some projects, moderating, and that's where I met some really important people that are, really important still in my life right now. And it's a really important time. Anyway, he, mentioned in a private conversation one day where he was born. We were messaging on Facebook and talking about things. And because he had mentioned that he lived in Southern California when he was born, in a podcast or something that had just happened, and it was relevant, so we were chatting about it, and that he had moved to Oregon and begun his training when he was about three or four. And for whatever reason, it like triggered me in my brain, and I was like, oh, well, I was born in Southern California and I moved to Oregon when I was 3 or 4. What a stupid like correlation to draw. It's very broad,
right?
But in the conversation, and I began to ask him about that and mention that to him. That's when I asked him where he was born. And he said Fontana. And I was like, oh, I was born in Fontana. And I said, well, what hospital? And he said, Kaiser Hospital. And I went, I was born at Kaiser Hospital in Fontana. Like, he's only 4 years younger than me. It triggered the fuck out of me.
Yes, and the plot thickens.
And then this Kaiser connection comes up over and over and over and over again.
Kaiser's
and of course, they're one of these project paperclip things. But now we can, tie this into mud flood and Tartaria stuff even.
Yeah.
I mean, it's and what's the definition of Kaiser?
Emperor, I think.
And to rule indefinitely or something.
Yes. Yeah. Something along those lines.
Yeah. Let's pause for 2 seconds. All right. So picking back up there, we were talking about the way that we kind of tied Kaiser in many different ways, and how many people have connections to Kaiser, where all this stuff is concerned. And it was just one of those things that when he told me that he was born in the same hospital as me, it made me think about certain things, but I still thought that I was being ridiculous about stuff. But that was, again, back in, I think, 2010 or something like that.
And are you older or younger than Aaron?
I'm older, 4 years.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So anyways, over the years, I showed people that scar on the inside of my lip, but not very often. And I didn't think about it very often. It's hidden away on the inside of my lip. Mm-hmm. And I've looked at it before, but I've never noticed the pattern in it until, early in 2018, when I realized that it was relevant. Mm-hmm. And the way it came about was really funny, actually, because we were at the movie theater with a friend of mine, somebody I've known since I was a young teenager, and kids were with me. We were seeing Black Panther. and we're watching this movie, and first of all, it kicks off talking about something called vibranium immediately, right? And instantly in the movie theater, I'm like, yeah, I bet that shit's real. So I'm Googling it, Of course, it's, it says it's fictional and from the Marvel world and all that. But not even very far into the movie, they show that, you know, the whole storyline is that this substance, vibranium, which gives us free energy, heals us, and all this other kind of stuff. Because humanity is too dumb and self-destructive. They have to, of course, protect us from it, and only special people have access to the city where this is held and protected in Wakanda, I think is the name of it. And the only way that you get into Wakanda is by showing the inside of your bottom lip. And they pull their bottom lip down, and there's like this holographic image of numbers or a code or something like that on the inside of their lip. And I just was like, jokingly, you know, I turned to my friend and to my kids, and I'm just like, let me in. I got my freaking, you know, like I got the password, motherfuckers. And I like pull my lip down and show my scar. Like it was just funny. Like, haha, I have a lip scar. You know, it just was nothing. It was a joke. Mm-hmm. We all laughed. I thought about it for a few days and I just thought, oh, that's funny. And I mean, to a huge degree, I put it back out of my mind because that was in, when was that? I think that was the end of 2017 when that happened, actually. When was that?
Was that long ago?
I don't know. When did that come out? Yeah, I'll look that up because unless, I was just thinking that it was before the accident of my ex, but I could be wrong. Yeah, maybe we saw it at the same time when he was here or something. I don't know. Timing is...
It didn't come out till 2018.
Okay. Really?
January okay. Of 2018.
Okay, that's why I'm thinking that then, because I think that, okay, I remember how it went. All right, so...
Not that long.
Yeah. So, anyways, it just was, you know, just something that... This is how things end up coming to me and being things. Like, it's just in these little odd packages and realizations that you don't realize aren't nothing.
Exactly.
And so, you know, let's fast forward and skip around a little bit here because we kind of have to, so I can kind of talk about the context of this lip scar thing. After we had already had our many sessions with Dr. Stivers and got many images and found out many things, you and I took a little trip to Area 51.
We did, yes.
We drove to Rachel, Nevada.
Yes.
And, you know, kind of for shits and giggles, we typed in 333 miles from my house to see where that ended up and how close that was, because I was tripping out at how the numbers, the mileage that Rachel was from here. You know, thing for patterns and numbers. And anyways, there was some interesting stuff that showed up there, and there was a road. There was a turnoff right there at 333 miles from here in the middle of effing nowhere at precisely... It just was, we were like, okay, well, that's interesting. So we took note of it when we drove by. But when we went to Rachel, which will be a whole episode on its own because it has to be.
Yeah.
Which isn't a fucking town, obviously. And some people might think that we're a little silly for not realizing it to this degree before we went there, maybe.
True.
And some are going to be like, well, of course it's a town. Don't be silly. The government, you know. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. We'll get there.
It was our first real picture of what does a staged town look like?
Yeah.
What kind of clues are you looking for? What kind of things stick out? How do you pick out whether people live somewhere or not and what's going on there?
Right.
And it took us a whole day almost there.
Yeah.
Several hours to figure out that we were
I mean, we didn't even know really what we were looking for.
Right.
Like, we just went there to find out about the town. It's interesting that it's named Rachel, and Rachel's name is Rachel, and this interesting stuff is happening to her.
Yeah. Well,
and by this
time, a lot of things to tie in there.
Yeah, there's a lot more background before this, but going there, we didn't know what we were looking for. We had no idea even fake towns existed.
No. And it was like, okay, let's just drive through there, go stay with my best friend in Vegas, and record it and talk and see what we see what's there. Anyway, when we left there and our lives were completely different because of the realizations that we had by the time that we left, because of the experience that happened and the things that took place. Remember, we just couldn't wait to get out of there. We'd seen what we needed to see, and we needed to get out of there. And we were being escorted. And so then by the time that we got to the next town on our way to Vegas, which I can't remember the name of, maybe you should pull that up.
I'll pull up a map.
Yeah. But when we were just like, oh my God, thank God we're out of there. Thank God, humanity. Thank God we're back to civilization.
Right.
And then we were driving past these houses, and it was like, what the fuck? Like, that's weird looking. It looks the same as it did in Rachel. Wait a second. Like, who lives there? That's weird. And there's like all these signs for bus stops, and you're just thinking, how many kids could possibly even be out here?
Yeah, I mean, Nevada's a weird state in itself, but there's a lot of nothingness in between these towns that are tiny. And nothing really is happening in these towns.
Now, Nevada and probably New Mexico are really the best examples of this, probably.
And Southern California had the same kind of vibe, not in the city areas, but more on the outskirts.
Yeah.
The panhandle of Oklahoma was kind of the same thing. Just is weird. It's weird.
So when we got there to that next town and noticed the same things, and we were noticing the very weird signage. Yeah, it was somewhere in there.
Alamo?
Yes.
Was it Alamo?
Yes, Ash Springs and Alamo, somewhere in there. There's something maybe more in the green area, possibly. I don't know. Anyways, we roll into town, and that place is like, there's no animals moving on the farms. There's nobody out working these farms. There's nobody.
There's nothing being grown. There was no dogs out in the yard. And some of these little shops.
No people moving around except for mostly the people that were following us.
A lot of construction.
Lots of construction.
And paint trucks. But yeah, no real life. There's no grocery stores.
We pull up to that first place, that's some self-storage place. And right on the billboard, it tells you civil effects. What else should it say? We took some pictures.
Yeah.
We were running out of video and stuff by then, but I noticed that when we were rolling into town, there was a P on the mountain. And I'm just thinking, like, what the hell is this P for? Like, who the frick's even out here? There's nobody out here. I still don't think we even had cell service yet.
Yeah.
Even though other people in Rachel and out there all had,
their satellite phones.
Yeah. But then we roll up and see that high school.
Yeah.
And it said home of the Panthers. And I just felt my lip like call to me, and I like touched my bottom lip. And because that fucking high school was brand spanking new.
Yeah.
And it had super tall prison fencing around it.
Yeah.
With cyclone fencing with fucking razor wire at the top. Like it was a prison with stadium lights all around
lights. I know. I remember.
And I was just like, what the fuck is happening?
I think we were surprised that it was the high school.
How could that be?
Yeah, it was.
And then right on cue, those two that were supposed to look like high school students crossed the street, but it was absolutely obvious that this town was a psyop that only came to life when someone drove into town.
Yeah, exactly.
And all this very fucky signage everywhere from this company called Yesco.
And the dream thing.
All of the same artwork and the dream theme. Bring your family, bring your dreams.
Yeah.
Bring your family, sleep and stay.
All
bring
these hotels along this route are...
And we'll get there and tie that in.
Yeah.
But so after being triggered about that, when we came back after our trip is when I had Dr. Stivers listen to my lip. I don't think we ever even imaged it, actually. Like, we've just had so many things to image and so many areas to look and so much to do that we need more time to go down some of these leads and organize the information the way it needs to be organized. But as it turned out, when we got back, you know, my lip was transmitting a sound. And we'll have to tie, you know, that discovery in with some other things, because there's a lot of this. There's a ridiculous amount of this. Yeah. Just before we started recording this episode, we stumbled upon something that said that it averaged that every person had about 100 things in their body. Now, I hope to God that is exaggerated. But quite frankly, more and more, I feel like that's exactly where this is going. And it's kind of blowing my mind, because the amount of people that have this butt crack scar thing is it's outrageous. And so I need to kind of go back to that now, because, well, actually, no, I have to tie up something here on the lip scar thing before I move on. Sorry for the confusion. It's just there's a lot to fit in here, and there's no good way to tell it all. Anyway, I started asking people, let me look at your lip, because there were certain commonalities we had already found by then. The pencil stabbing thing. And I was just like, let me see in your lip. And even though I never found any scar that matched mine, I did see little scars in like many, many people's lips.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if that was something we kept track of or not.
Not really.
We will have to go back and ask, I think,
but we'll
probably.
add it.
But also, I looked with my magnifying glass that was lit up. And, you know, I kind of feel something in my lip. But it's interesting because I know that nothing's happened to my kids' lips. And I think I found the scar on both of their lips now. They were just little tiny, tiny scars. But it's almost like I am being shown that, like, I'm kind of this map of look for that on somebody else, but it's going to be much more subtle.
Yeah.
Yours is obvious, theirs is subtle.
Yeah.
So look there. Yours is obvious, theirs is subtle kind of thing. But same with the scar between my eyes from an injury that happened. I was told when I was about 9 months old, when I was just learning how to walk, and I pulled a high chair down on my head, cracked myself right between the eyes. I was told that I almost bled out and, you know, got stitched up between the eyes. I have this, you know, huge scar between my eyes that has kind of, you know, always been a topic of conversation in my family and a focal point because of what happened. That is an area that is transmitting, you know, it's these things that's like, so then I'm like, okay, well, I have this scar on my wrist. Like that was there, I think, before I broke my arm when I was 3. And here's where I have to add out, just to throw out a couple of bread trail crumbs of where we're going to go and how far this is going to spread. And I am kind of throwing it out there a little bit early, and at the same time, it has to get talked about. When I was about 3 years old, I broke my arm, my left arm, and on my left wrist, I have a scar there from, I apparently had an accident where my mom accidentally closed my wrist in the door when I was little, bringing in groceries, and just, you know, closed the car door behind her kind of thing. Didn't realize that I, you know, wasn't there or something maybe. And so she took me to the hospital and got that all sewed up. And so I have a scar on my left wrist, but I don't have any memory of that. I don't know how old I was. I just know that from what I was told that it happened before the cast, before I broke my arm. My memory has always been different of breaking my arm as the rest of my family. And we'll go into that another time or whatever. But when I had my broken arm on my left arm, my family, my mom, my dad, and my older brother and I went on a vacation to Sequoia National Park. While we were on vacation at Sequoia National Park, and my brother and I were racing through the forest, I hear my dad call to me, "Rachel, watch where you're going." And I look back to look at him, my dad. And when I turned back around, it was too late. And I had already hit this man in his balls, in his nuts with my cast arm. I mean, I came up with full force. And like, from my memory, I blasted him in the balls. My dad screaming, "Oh my God, Rachel!" And all I know is in my memory, it was a big deal to my dad. And we took a picture with this man because he was the fucking president. It was Richard Nixon.
What year was this?
This was in 1977. And we were alone in the woods with Richard Nixon and Baby Rebozo and another woman who was standing next to him in the picture. I still have the cast. I still have the picture.
Yeah.
And the man standing next to Richard Nixon on the other side, I believe, is Henry Kissinger.
Huh.
Now, there could be some, I don't claim to be right about every fucking thing any fucking time.
Right.
It's just that in my body, in my every cell, I know it's him.
Yeah.
It looks like him to me. But it's interesting because he doesn't have a pair of glasses on, and I can't find another picture of him not wearing glasses. But I also don't believe that the Henry Kissinger now is the same Henry Kissinger based on how our reality works and all that kind of thing. But this is not nothing.
Right. You in the middle of the woods, trees, it makes me think of Bohemian Grove.
We had just driven through that
huge
tree.
That tree, yeah.
That Jay Dreamers on YouTube. Great channel. Everybody check that out. Jay Dreamers. He is fucking super, super hot smart. He's got amazing content.
Yeah.
I love the way his mind works because he was really tying some things together.
And one of the videos was him talking about these trees that we drive through being portals.
Right.
And with what we have researched and learned elsewhere is that that's totally kind of a feasible option. Not saying it's true, but it's definitely feasible.
Right, but it does kind of go with my dream too about the wolves coming out of these portals and trees.
Right.
And
and the trees being so important.
I'll have to explain how I was triggered by that video only about 3 weeks ago. I didn't see that video until 3 weeks ago, the Jay Dreamers video about the tree portals.
Right.
And of course I was triggered because the tree he featured was the tree that I had just driven through. And that we spoke about a fucking year ago with my best girlfriend on the other side of the country who has all of my same experiences, who has a connection to Richard Nixon as well, who has the pencil stabbing, who has the implant in her shoulder, who has an endless list of absolute crazy phenomenology. We'll be bringing her into some conversations here in the near future. Lots of amazing stuff there. Yeah. So getting back to this day, the day that we found out that this scar on my wrist that I didn't know about, it was like, check this thing on my lip. Oh my God. Yeah, it's making a sound. Check this thing between my eyes. Yeah, it's making a sound. Okay, well, this is another scar I don't know much about or that happened before I could remember. It's making a sound. That scar, I kept staring at it. Remember that day? And I was like, Hextilda, why do I know that this has something to do with Richard Nixon? And I'm staring at that scar, and because of my broken arm. And that's when my best girl from the other side of the country texted me that screenshot that night on Coast to Coast AM with George Nuri, that he was interviewing, that it was a show with the dark journalist, and I don't know if Linda Moulton Howe was brought into it yet by then, but about this time capsule and Robert Merritt and the ET time capsule that Richard Nixon left behind that he hid in the White House. And that is coming out the same fucking night I find out that my arm is transmitting a signal in the exact fucking spot that Richard Nixon signed his name on my cast. Yeah. Spelled his name on my cast directly over my wrist, right, where my veins along with this scar make a fucking triangle on my wrist. Yeah.
I just you're not going to end up in the middle of the woods. This just doesn't happen to normal people. Like it's not a coincidence is what I'm trying to say. Like things like this
and it was a story that I shared my whole life that really was just like, oh, it's 3:33 right now. Awesome. Story that I shared my whole life that I was just like, an interesting little thing. Story, I hit Richard Nixon in the balls. Yeah. Do you know how many times I've talked about maybe trying to sell that cast for money just because I thought that, he's the most hated president.
I know.
So maybe recently. But anyway.
People have quite a reaction to him, which is interesting in itself.
It is. It sure is.
Telling, yes.
So we were immediately like, holy fucking shit. I started digging frantically for the cast and for the picture, which I may also have the negative of. I need to do some more digging to see if I can have the negative, because I want to know who that woman is in the picture.
Who's looks almost like invisible until you like really point her out.
Who photobombs a picture with President Nixon, Bebe Rebozo, and what I think is Henry Kissinger in the middle of fucking Sequoia National Park with a family just taking a picture? And my mom says, oh, it's just some old lady who was walking by, from my memory. It looks like someone in my family. I feel like when I look at that woman, I go, I know her. Who is that? Like, but I know that we were alone on that trip. My mom said we were alone on that trip. She looks like a woman in Julie's family as well. Yeah. And we did talk about that, and we'll go into that more. Anyways, in this picture, the first thing that I see when we finally pull it out that I'm triggered by is the fact that his fucking first finger is pointing at my scar between my eyes.
His hand is in an odd
on
position.
My face. No, his thumb is pointing at that. I'm sorry, like I'm backwards. His thumb is pointing at the scar between my eyes, and his first finger is pointing to the bottom of my lip where something is at. And his foot is between my legs.
Yeah. It's an odd positioning.
It's a very odd positioning. And he's not touching my brother that way. And we're both in the picture. And I just instantly knew that was a spell. I mean, I know in every cell of my body, and there are things that I'm going to say like that people have to...
When you go down some of the rabbit holes, you learn that politicians frequently meet in the forest to do rituals, and then you learn that they're doing these rituals on kids. And then you learn the age of 3 is a very important age for some of these kids.
Man.
So it's to me, you being in the middle of the fucking woods with political figures is not just a random happenstance. That doesn't just happen.
No.
And the more we research, the more we're finding that a lot of this is happening to a lot of us. A lot of different things are happening to a lot of us.
Right. And
in different ways.
You're just not able to see what's really going on because you never really looked at you just were not programmed that way.
Right. Well, everything is to program us to not see it.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was fairly eye-opening that all of that was happening at once, all kind of on the same day. and we got some very interesting sounds, I want to say, off the cast, even though I don't know. I mean, I hate throwing that out there. We didn't record that one, and
we'd like to
I don't know if we could
beat
that anomaly either. But, so I will also be uploading some recordings of the transmission sounds that were coming out of my back pretty soon here. And some other spots. But so basically there are a lot of weird things that we're tying all these things together, and it's like, I just kept going, what do you mean? Every single spot on my body can't be transmitting something. Every single spot on my body can't be something, even though I've had these crazy sensations all over my body. Most of them I've ignored because the others were so specific that they took my focus. But in the last, 3 weeks since we found this butt crack scar correlation. And these anomalies in our lower backs, as well as his first patient on that subject, who was over 15 years ago. A lot of things have come together since then. And I went to my chiropractors with Dr. Stivers the other day. He was the one who I tried to get some x-rays through of some of these things in my back, and they just didn't really show up. At least I wasn't able to see anything, and he honestly just wanted to have an explanation for me, I think, and didn't really look very well at certain things. And when we were there the other day, and I told him about the butt crack scar thing and the correlations and stuff that we were drawing, I mean, he was blown away. His face was in awe, and he jumped right up and was like, I'm going to pull up your x-rays and look at them right now. And the two doctors looked at the x-rays and he was looking at my tailbone. And he's like, oh my God, how did I miss this before? What the fuck is this attached to your tailbone? What the hell is this? And they were both just like, oh my God, do you see that? And so when Monday rolls around, I'm going to have to get some screenshots of that. Oh, wait, you have a Windows machine. I might be able to get those with you today before. Okay. Anyway. So it turns out that this butt crack scar thing is snowballing. I mean, freaking snowballing. And at the same time, of course, I think I mentioned that two of the people that come to the meetings both had the same experience, like the same week, of their chiropractor finding something floating in their necks. Both of these women. One of them had been told that her ribs had been broken, healed, and then reconstructed. She had no idea. She's never had an injury that she knew of like that. There's all kinds of stuff in her x-rays. Like, what in the hell have we been through?
Exactly.
But now we're hopefully going to get a team of at least hopefully a few doctors together to be analyzing these x-rays and these images. And what is exciting about what happened day before yesterday with this meeting with my chiropractor and Dr. Stivers is that we can overlay these images now. We can overlay my x-ray on top of the thermal images, and we can start to pinpoint these things now.
Exactly.
So anybody who looks in somebody else's butt crack and finds a scar, looks in their own butt crack and finds a scar. And honestly, kind of, you really need somebody to look first, because if I didn't see it because of you guys looking first, then I wouldn't know what I was looking for. When I looked for it myself, I wouldn't have been able to see it or notice it. It just would have looked, because it's so faint. You just can't. It's not an easy thing to do. Get creative, you guys. Share this video. Share it on forums everywhere that people are talking about this stuff. Like, this is crazy, and it all relates to gang stalking. I hate to bring all that in, but it's absolutely the fucking truth. I am absolutely tortured by these things. you know, there may be some other aspects.
Think of all of these other sicknesses that people can't explain that are happening to their bodies, the pain that they have no, you know, it's like, that's a thing that doctors just write off or are not even willing to look at. That's the weirdest part, is we're not saying that these things are anything. All we're saying is that some of these things cause pain. What is it? And doctors don't even want to go near it. Like already, they're like, nope, we're not touching it. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
We're not even.
Why?
Right. We're not even, and they're just, it's a whole other podcast. But, you know, the idea that people have pain in their bodies and not knowing where it's coming from, this might be an explanation.
I am too young. I take too good care of myself to feel the way I feel physically for my age. I worked hard in my life. I've done men's jobs. I did concrete in Montana for a living. I loaded trucks with firewood. Like, I delivered auto parts where I had to chain my truck several times a day because nobody coming to do it for me. Like, I've worked hard. So there are certain things where I've probably stressed my body out, but this is ridiculous. I don't believe that anything that I've never had major injuries. My broken arm is the only bone until I broke my foot, 2 years ago. It's the only thing I've really hurt on myself. Like, I don't know, mostly I like to think I was healthy.
I know.
Like, the kind of pain that I experienced, though, like my lower back, this pain in my tailbone that has hurt me, and the pain in my neck. My neck curves the complete fucking opposite way than a regular person's neck is supposed to curve. What the hell?
Yeah.
Now, our friend's girlfriend in the meeting the other day said, from her understanding, that is also a stress response from being in fight or flight for too long.
Right. Right. And our minds may be going into different states.
Right.
But it seems that we're kind of using the same body in these, if the super soldier aspect is something to be considered, then these super soldiers, they're mentally in a different altered state, but their bodies are still doing the work.
Right.
And still having that experience. And so it's, it gets intense with what we're really talking about here.
Yeah. And it's going to be hard to stay on track. We're going to really do our best. We're probably nearing an hour or so. It's hard to tell with how this works. It doesn't let us know, really. That's not the accurate time there. But let me look at my notes again, make sure that I'm going to be okay. So let's actually skip over to the thing on my shoulder again, which is the thing that brought so much attention to the fact that something's in there for so many years. Because that's the spot that Dr. Stivers found about a 2 millimeter or so incision mark that was in between a strawberry mark and what I thought was just like a blackhead, honestly, for years on my back that just wouldn't go away. And we got 3 different types of signals transmitting off of that same spot, and he found this incision mark in that spot. So it wasn't, this butt crack scar isn't the only one. I've never had a surgery on my back. I haven't ever had an injury there. There should be no. But when you guys said that, because I couldn't see it, it triggered me to remember the year before, about a year before then, sitting at my art table and doing art and feeling a sensation there, and it was bugging me. And I was telling my daughter to help me get this freaking thing out of my back. She goes, "What, your implant?" I go, No, this fucking blackhead. It's been there forever. Sounds gross, everybody. Sorry for the TMI for those of you who are, weak-stomached or babies. But when you're a mom, we're all human. And my nephew is here, my older nephew is here, and they began to, she was pushing on this thing on my back, and because I could feel it. And she goes, ew, it's coming out. It's black and it's huge and long. And my nephew was, oh my God. They were both just like, and I was like, well, get it. Like, what is it? Get the tweezers. Like, get it the fuck out. Like, maybe it was a splinter that was in there for 12 years that, you know, right. That I just didn't, you know. And so she like went to grab the tweezers, and they both screamed at the same time and went, oh, it moved and went back in. And I just I was tripping out about it. I remember thinking, oh my God, I have more gallons. And I, you know, put it out of my mind like you do when you have to go the fuck to work and pay some bills and like take care of your kids, and you just have to march on. Yeah. So I wasn't triggered again about that until that day that we got the signal off of that spot and found the incision mark. So just throwing it out there for future referencing and all that, and for anybody who has anything similar to pipe up and hopefully contribute. Let's see. Scar between my eyes. We talked about that. But let me touch on something else on there actually, which would be that, you know, the scar between my eyes is obviously stared me in the mirror every day. So it's a little bit different than the one on my lip, but I have thought about it over the years, but you know, not really in a way that like triggered me per se, until I started watching that La Femme Nikita show. And I think it was the journalist that was trying to help her, this blonde woman. I used to be pretty blonde. I don't know. She has this scar between her eyes, this actress. I don't know if it was, I can't imagine why they would, you know, put something like that in when it wasn't worked into the storyline or anything. And, you know, I was honestly like hoping and kind of waiting for them to do that because her scar looked so much like mine. Oh yeah. Yeah. And I was just like, and for no reason one night, I just like froze Netflix on this one screen of her and just like, I don't know, I just stared at her for like 10 minutes at least, just going, wow, how interesting. And why, and I couldn't tell you why it seemed overly dramatic and like I was just being, and you know, I'm always kind of trying to tell myself that I'm being a little bit ridiculous. I'm always trying to downplay, and I can't do that anymore. But after I stared at her for like 10 minutes, then I went and stared at myself in the mirror for like 10 minutes. And I just remember thinking, who the fuck are you? Like, you don't even know who the fuck you are or what's even happened to you. And like, what the fuck are you? I mean, who has Immaculate Conception nowadays and talks about that? We'll go into that another time as well. Yeah. Through such trauma. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Anyways, so the scar aspect was already coming to the surface. Like my subconscious mind, my higher self was trying hard to get me to pay attention to some of these things. And then your friend came up. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And well, you noticed it, didn't you? I think you noticed I want to say you mentioned it before I met her because we had already found out that mine was transmitting and that it was very hers is very similar, and her memory or what her story is amazing. Her mom, she was about 2. And she was, I guess, walking around our living room, and her mom saw a hand come out of the thin air and push her, like head slammer or something. Yeah, and like back of the head, like head slammed her into the coffee table.
And she has, I'm not too sure if they went to the hospital or anything. I imagine.
I would imagine so. That scar is pretty good size between her eyes.
But this is what her mom remembers and told her, and it's like, that okay? Like, what do you? How it's fucking weird.
Yeah, right.
What do you say to that? Like, how do you? So,
and then when Steve Colburn was here for our meetup, and we were, kind of working with some of his equipment and stuff too, he got, RF readings off of that spot in between her eyes as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's when we were checking between your eyes.
Yep.
And we got the same thing there. And
because I don't have
same thing in the lip, I think. No, but you do have this little area that's on your forehead where your third eye would be, basically, that is just so slightly different colored, but it's almost in a perfect circle.
Yeah, it feels like a circle.
Super perfectly shaped, and it's so
like the bottom of it,
unnoticeable. It's not a scar. It's just this very slight, different looking area,
almost like a shield.
Yeah,
like a little metal shield.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Anyways, these are some of the.
And it's not like any of us really noticed these things or really thought much of them until we all started talking about it and realizing
we weren't making something out of nothing. None of these things even mattered, and as we were asking the questions, it seemed asinine.
Right, right. But everybody having some of these things happening, and I don't know, scars don't emit noises. Like, that's not a thing that they should. There's no reason for them to be doing that. So, the anomalies need to be studied, and they need to be studied in a way that we can really either use these as evidence or not. Or we want the truth, not.
Well, and that website that we came across just before recording this is going to go up and be shared, because it's got an awful lot of information about how much technology like this is out there.
Yeah.
Who's got access to it?
Yeah.
Fucking everybody, by the way.
Yeah.
Everybody, by the way. You don't even have to be a really high rolling corporation to have access to use this stuff. And, there's videos that you can find on YouTube that talk about gang stalking. One of them talks about how the city of San Jose pays their gang stalkers in Walmart cards, which you can laugh about if you want, but people are desperate sometimes, and they will do anything to survive. They create this so that we'll all do anything to survive.
Exactly.
And there's, if you Google, oh gosh, what is the name of that? I'll put the link for this as well. But Google gang stalking for ethical gang stalking for government contractors.
Or you can DuckDuckGo it.
Right. Yeah, DuckDuckGo it. Don't Google that. I don't know if it matters, but
no, it doesn't matter at this point.
Anyways, the amount of information on how this stuff's being used on everybody, and how many people are absolutely in the know in the community about who's being monitored, and it's like, it's just like they live, like, you know what I mean? Everybody's keeping the herd in line. That's in the know, and you get some, traders or whatever. I don't know. There's
a lot of things happening.
There's a lot of things happening.
Yeah.
And it's not very easy to see the full picture, because yes, we know that we somehow volunteered to come to Earth. I cannot imagine that we volunteered for all this.
I don't think we knew what we were getting into.
No, and I think that things got hijacked and steered wrong, taken over. And I think a lot of what we experience are not the things that we chose to experience, but that are, you know, like that. But you have to balance that with the knowing that you are the ultimate creator. And how do we remove our consent from all of these programs?
Yeah.
Because ignorance isn't removal of consent.
Right.
Saying, I just don't believe and I'm not going to look and that doesn't apply to me.
Right.
Doesn't remove your consent. But your intentional knowing that there's more going on and constantly building the knowing of who you are and what you're capable of and why is it that someone would want to do this to you?
Right.
What's
That's
the point of all of these things?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I sometimes think about if I didn't have all these things in my body, what would my life look like?
Right.
Would I be like physically miserable and poor?
Right.
You know?
Right.
I think our world would look different. And I think all of this stuff is coming to the surface to end right now. But I think that the important part is, how do you end what you refused to see? And so the more we bring to the surface to be brought into the frame of reference of the consensus reality, so that we can go, no thanks. I'll decline that invitation. Yeah. I'll decline that invitation.
I don't want to play that game.
I don't want to play that game. Yeah. I don't want to play that game. And we're working on some solutions, some real solutions for, you know, I just don't know. I have some ideas. I don't want to get into all of my mad scientist ideas about how recently inspired to get some of these things out of our bodies. I don't know that it's going to be the regular way that a lot of people think about and talk about. I personally don't feel like psychically and spiritually bypassing the, you know, we've counted over 33 things in my body, and that's just extremely low and inaccurate. I don't want to psychically and spiritually bypass that and have someone go, I removed it for you psychically. But it, you know, if it works, I don't know. I've never
like
been
a Band-Aid.
Yes. Really. I've never, ever had the feeling that was the solution that I was supposed to have in this. And I think that this is why, because otherwise I would have not followed this trail. And we would not have discovered all of this stuff that we have discovered.
Right.
And I say we because I would have never even fucking looked had you not convinced me to talk about this stuff, and that it was maybe important, and that anybody would even care to, you know, it just didn't feel like you hear all these super grandiose stories. And I suppose I say that in the most ridiculous sounding way because this is pretty grandiose.
I know, it does. It does. But
things are so hidden in plain sight.
Yeah.
Everything is so hidden in plain sight. And we wouldn't have discovered this had you not encouraged me. And we wouldn't have known to look further for a scar in the top of your butt crack had we not found out from Stivers what he found on that one woman.
Yeah. Right.
You know, I didn't discover this. It's all of us connecting and talking about this.
Exactly.
That has brought it all together. So we probably should cut that one and start a new one there because it has to be digestible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is a good time to
hopefully there's not too much editing to do there. Sorry, I had to stop and do a couple things in between. I'd like to just post it, so that's kind of why I'm apologizing ahead of time, because I might not edit it at all, just so you guys know, because otherwise we'll get
another couple days.
Yeah, we'll get stuck here in the bullshit that doesn't matter instead of getting it out. So
we'll get better as we go.
But we will. And we figured out that the noise from the first episode. Yeah, that really large or loud clicking sound was these microphones. We're not using that anymore. We're going to find something else.
Yeah.
Anyways, getting it ironed out. Thank you all for listening so much. Hopefully we'll be hearing from some of you guys soon.
Yeah.
Because
we're excited to hear everyone's experiences.
Big time. So. And we're excited to offer you some pieces so that things may make sense in your life in a new way. Thanks so much for listening. We look forward to having you guys listen in again. Take care.